teams, the 4 contesting teams, and each one of them actually performed brilliantly. But I think obviously we can only have one winner and one runner-up, but I feel with the little amount of work and the effort and the innovation that I've seen in all of those 4 teams, I must say that each one of you is a winner, and we will certainly find a way to work together with the youth and with these teams and with these great minds, because this is exactly what we need in this day and age of digital transformation, the digitization, the advances made in technology, but also the government's priority of not just digitizing our economy, but involving and incorporating and inculcating the digitalness, if that's a word that exists, and really transforming government into in all the digital platforms, and making the best use of that. Because AI is a reality, and just using AI for computing, certainly you can't limit yourself to that, and you can't just be focused on that. You have to make use of AI in each and every profession, and the legal profession and the human rights is certainly cannot be separated from the use of AI. So we have to use AI for the general welfare of the public at large. Now, starting with the official part of the spiel, it is truly an honor and a privilege to be here at this important event hosted by NCHR. The Commission obviously has emerged as a vital institution in Pakistan's democratic landscape, working tirelessly to safeguard the rights, raise awareness, foster dialogue on issues that directly affect the dignity and well-being of our citizens. I commend the work that you have been doing personally as the chairperson and the Commission in general for creating spaces such as this, because this is what we need in this day and age, where stakeholders can reflect on challenges and build collective solutions. As the Minister of State for Law and Justice, I also wish to reaffirm that the Ministry remains committed to strengthening Pakistan's legal and institutional framework, while the NCHR has its own independent and crucial mandate. Our goals intersect, ensuring that justice in Pakistan is fair, accessible, and timely, and that the fundamental rights of the people are protected in both letter and spirit. Together, through shared effort and collaboration, we can make the premise of justice more meaningful for every citizen. Over the years, Pakistan has made considerable progress in strengthening its legislative and policy framework. We have enacted laws to address custodial torture, safeguard vulnerable communities, and bring our national practices closer in line with international standards. These reforms underline our resolve to protect the rights and provide justice that is effective, impartial, and responsive to the needs of the society. At the same time, we must recognize Pakistan's obligations that extend beyond the national level. As a signatory to the ICCPR, Pakistan has undertaken a binding commitment to ensure that access to justice is protected, preserved, and guaranteed for all individuals within its jurisdiction. The United Nations Human Rights Committee, through its most recent concluding observations that are not merely critiques, but serve as reminders of the international standards that we have pledged to uphold, and as guideposts for reforms that can bring our justice system in closer alignment with both constitutional principles and global human rights obligations. Nevertheless, we must acknowledge the continuing challenges. Our justice system is confronted by a backlog of cases, prolonged litigation, and procedural hurdles that often discourage ordinary citizens for seeking timely remedies. This is not merely a question of efficiency. It touches upon the very essence of the justice itself. If the system fails to deliver relief when it is most needed, justice risks losing its meaning. Ministry of Law and Justice is prioritizing measures to enhance access to speedy justice. The concept is simple yet transformative. Justice should not only be fair, but also prompt. Amongst the steps that we at the Ministry of Law and Justice we've taken with obviously with the help of our external partners, and specifically when Samuel Riss spoke about for the lack of a better word, not that it's actually on top of my head, the system. The dashboard, sorry, dashboard, thank you. Dashboard. So we've actually also been helped, and we've modernized the case management system in courts with the CAM system. Promotion of technology, including e-filing and digital records to minimize delays, strengthening of ADR, alternative dispute resolution, so that many matters can be resolved outside the lengthy court processes, and building the capacity of our legal institutions and practitioners so that they can meet the demands of a changing society. Also, I think it's pivotal to and timely to add as well that we at the Ministry of Law and Justice have also been applying the International Human Rights Guidelines in the current legislative framework or the amendments that we bring through the legislative processes. At this juncture, I also want to speak about one of the news items that I read through this morning. The plight of a 74-year-old male inmate who was on death row. The Supreme Court of Pakistan has decided by the principles that had been enunciated in the Safia Banos case. And I read about this case because there's a bit of a background, and I actually want to share in my very own words with you the plight of this 70-year-old male who had been on death row. And his appeal in the Supreme Court alone had been pending since 2014. So this just tells you and shows you that this is exactly what we need. And when the honorable judges tried to inquire why the appeal had been pending, for one reason or the other, since 2014, when the decision had been given by the Honorable High Court, and why it had actually taken this long for the case to be adjudicated and be taken up and be decided. So various factors do come in play, but this is, and through this example, I actually want to show you that justice delayed is justice denied and can also result in a miscarriage of justice. This 74-year-old man who had served so much time behind bars, and his case not being taken up, year after year after year after year. Who was keeping a tab on this particular case? So this is really the plight of our judicial system at times, the delays, the backlogs, the overload of cases. But then again, when we try to do something nice from the legislative perspective or the legislative side, then we also get criticized for bringing the 26th Constitutional Amendment. I mean, setting up a constitutional bench, obviously this was in aid and in support of such cases, that such cases should not be put on the back burner, should not face that backlog, should not be delayed for any matter whatsoever. But obviously we've tried to do what we can, and we still will try to do what we can so as to improve and make those betterments in our judicial and legislative systems. So that brings me almost towards the end of my spiel, so I won't bore you anymore with more of this, but the reforms, these are not abstract goals. These are practical interventions that aim to make justice that is more accessible to each one of our citizens, especially to the poor, the marginalized, and those who often feel excluded from the system, ensuring that their voices are heard and their grievances are resolved without delay. This is the true test of our commitment. Our vision is of a Pakistan where citizens do not feel abandoned in their pursuit of justice. Ladies and gentlemen, access to speedy justice is not merely an aspiration. It follows directly from the constitutional guarantees of fair trial and due process, and from the fundamental rights to life and dignity that is enshrined in our Constitution. The strength of any justice system is measured not only by the fairness of its outcomes, but also by the timeliness in which those outcomes are delivered. A delayed verdict may satisfy the letter of the law, but it cannot repair the anguish of those who've waited far too long for relief. Our faith also guides us in this responsibility. The Holy Quran commands and establish weight in justice and do not make deficient the balance. Surah Rahman. This timeless principle reminds us that the justice must be delivered in full measure, not only fair in substance, but also timely in practice. As we move forward, let us reaffirm our shared responsibility, whether as lawmakers, as judges, as lawyers, as civil society, to ensure that justice in Pakistan is not only fair, but also prompt and accessible. I thank each one of you here, and I congratulate the team that has won, and I also congratulate the team that is the runner-up, and the remaining two teams as well for all of the hard work that they've put in through this competition. Congratulations once again. Thank you. Sure. If I could